What's that? Another one? I thought the last one was the last one. They're dragging this man out of retirement again? Alright, alright. How how much are they paying him? Come on, how much are they? Okay. Well, for alright, we're doing that. Ah, you know what? One final adventure.
Would you believe it?
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. I didn't think I'd be saying it either in my lifetime, but here we are with one more question mark. I don't know, money talks. One more Indiana Jones. This time, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. And no, I don't have an Indiana Jones cosplay because it's like a beige button-up, khaki pants, a brown leather jacket, and an old fedora. Like, I don't know. I like the Nathan Drake look better. This is still like I'm the next generation of adventurer. Me. By the way, I already knew before I went into this film, IGN's review, so let me get this straight. You gave Boogeyman, you gave The Boogeyman a 7, which is not a bad movie, but certainly not a great one. But then you come and give Dial of Destiny a 4. To give a movie that low of a rating, it's gotta be catastrophic. I'm pretty sure they gave Fast X a higher rating, so I always take IGN reviews with a grain of salt. Rotten Tomatoes, in my mind, have been wrong before, or rather the critics feel certain ways about films that the general public or movie-going viewers like me feel differently about. So I try to go in unbiased, but I knew that there'd be some controversial topics and plot and themes in this one. Here's the craziest part to me. So I had a marathon before I sat down to watch Dial of Destiny. It had been a minute since I had watched all the Indiana Jones, so went ahead and got them on 4K, went through them all. And in order, they are all directed by Steven Spielberg. Now, they are Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Temple of Doom, The Last Crusade, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, everyone's favorite, and now Dial of Destiny. But here's the kicker. For the first time in the entire Indiana Jones series, Dial of Destiny is not directed by Spielberg. He's still a producer on it, he's still heavily involved in it, but instead, we have some fresh blood to end the series, which is a choice. I'm not opposed to it. You can tell it's influenced by Spielberg, but it doesn't have the direct Spielberg flair. Director is a James Mangold. It's one of those names where I didn't memorize it. I didn't have this logged in the category of films that I'm aware of, but he's done some of my favorites. Most recently and probably most well known, this is the director of Logan. Logan, which is, by the way, hot take and
Confession time. Here's what I got.
Logan is the only X-Men adjacent film that I've seen, and for me, in that regard, I'm satisfied because Logan is a damn masterpiece. So, but also another film that I actually covered on my channel. Unfortunately, didn't review Logan back when that came out, but Ford versus Ferrari. So he has many more films aside from that, but those are two of his most well-known films. I already like the director's style, filmography. He can make a hell of a movie. Putting that aside, we have the cast, and boy oh boy, I mean, you know him. I don't need to get into his filmography, but we have, once again, Harrison Ford, this poor man. I shouldn't say this poor man. He knows damn well what he's doing. Coming in to be the secondary protagonist, or rough around the edges protagonist, or trying to screw over Indy, love-hate relationship, eventually come over to the good side of things type of deal. We have Phoebe Walter-Bridge, who, if you know her from anything, and this is the only thing I'm going to reference, but if you know her from anything, she's the lead of Fleabag. Yes, I will watch it someday. Yes, mother, I'm sure I will enjoy it. Yes, mother, I will watch the show. At some point. There's a lot of them out there. Whenever I see a clip of her in something, it's the same character, so cool, she's good at it. But oh boy, a good portion of the reason I came in here, what was I looking forward to? Any chance I get to talk about this man. Our villain, we gotta have a good villain, and boy howdy, Mads Mikkelsen. Oh my god, I love him as a phenomenal actor. handsome, distinguished gentleman. I can go on and on. He's a large selling point of the movie for me and another friend or two of mine. I'm gonna say this, I would go over his filmography, but you know what? I give you homework. You need to look up this man and what he's been in, because he's one of the best, one of the greats. Whatever character he does, he plays well, but villains especially, it just seems to be his forte. Oh, Hannibal over here. I'm not gonna spoil the movie, but the elements that are involved in the film, I'll hint at some elements only because they're literally like what's talked about in the trailer. And here's the other thing. I think what really threw people off about this film, the whole thing that the Dial of Destiny, the villain says it in the trailer. He's like, I can go back in time and fix Hitler's mistakes. So we're going to be dealing with time travel, obviously, or even like the cons, like, is it even going to be possible? Is it going to happen? And I think that immediately when you involve time travel in a blockbuster film, critics start being like, well, I don't know about that. Let me see here. What's crazy to me, here's the thing. Every single Indiana Jones film, and it's similar to Uncharted in a way, except Uncharted 4 is kind of questionable, but in the Indiana Jones movies, every single one, including people like the fans' favorites and all that, every film has had a fantastical element to it some way or another, something otherworldly, something that's not quite grounded 100% in reality. I mean, obviously. And even Indy, like Indy himself, he addresses it in this film.
I don't believe in magic. But a few times in my life, I've seen things I can't explain.
True magic, I don't believe that it necessarily exists. Most of it is sleight of hand and kind of that human element to it. But I also am firmly in the belief system of anything is possible. Anything is possible. So, yeah, more power to him. I enjoy these grounded and yet still action-packed movies about treasure hunting that turn into something mystical or like possibly otherworldly, kind of lingering under the surface that eventually will seep up by Act 3. So I'm on board for any concepts like that. In rewatching the original films, but compared to Crystal Skull, this is a massive step forward. It's back to relatively true form for what Indiana Jones, in my opinion, has been. It's not without its flaws, but I think comparatively to the brilliant writing of Crystal Skull.
Uber word for gold translates as treasure. Their treasure wasn't gold, it was knowledge. Knowledge was their treasure.
Why don't you stick around, Junior?
I don't know. Why didn't you, Dad?
We've come a long way from that. I think this was a massive improvement. Was Crystal Skull hilarious and entertaining? Yes, but this was a better film, like without doubt for me. And that being said, I really enjoyed this. I thought it was a better send-off than Crystal Skull was, though it's kind of funny that they did a send-off and set up potential paths for other characters like Shia LaBeouf, his son, and different, while him and Marion go off and be married. But then now we have, oh, no, this is the final adventure, and we're going to write off some characters and kind of have some new canon established. Immediately, I got to get this out of the way. I loved Mads Mikkelsen in this. I thought he was a great villain. When it comes down to it, a lot of the Indiana movies, his whole thing is taking on, beating up, killing Nazis, and trying to make sure they don't get any weird otherworldly objects, which for me is always a cool selling point for, like, I like films like this that take place during the World Wars, where it's the Nazis are getting desperate, so they're trying to search into the occult and otherworldly items to give them like an edge of some sort in the war to come. And this movie's no exception. Maud's whole character is the Nazis lost, or as he puts it, Adolf lost. And he's trying to find this dial to go back in time and basically right Hitler's wrongs so the Nazis don't lose. And that makes him just an evil little guy, really. But what I loved especially, this is a big selling point for me, I'm very biased. I don't know if anybody knows this or not. I've made it apparent many times over. I'm going to make a video about it, hopefully before the end of this year, because I really want to just have fun and talk about it. One of my favorite aesthetics in film and games is when somebody starts off in a piece of media with, like, you know, nice hair, cool hair, normal hair, whatever, especially if they're a villain. By the end of it, it's like disheveled, it's coming down, you know, there's battle scars or whatever. I do want to make like a top 10 list of stuff like that. So Mads, throughout most of this film, old Mads here's getting knocked around and running around and trying to get this and get that and escape Indy. And I mean, when I tell you there's like disheveled hair to the max, like, is great. It scratches a certain part of my brain that likes watching characters go through that type of stuff, and I just like that aesthetic, and especially because it's an actor that I love, and the hair keeps getting disheveled. It's a little thing, but I loved it. Another pro to the film, I think this film has a lot of super fun action sequences, even though the trailers spoil a good amount of them, which I get marketing, you gotta put it out there and keep it prevalent in people's minds, but like, come on, don't show me they didn't show every single action sequence, but damn near all of them. Actually, I really enjoyed the opening sequence, and any of the other action sequences throughout, they were fun. Granted, a lot of CGI, I mean, practical in spots here and there, and like there was some set dressing and certain sets were done well practically, so bravo there, but a large portion of what happened in this film is in fact CG. But of course the film isn't without its flaws, but here's the tricky part. I think that my enjoyment of the film outweighs the flaws, or at least the flaws weren't significant enough to make this a bad movie in my opinion. The writing isn't bad, but the quest writing is kind of convoluted. I noticed as I'm watching this, and maybe it would help if you had subtitles, right? But they're looking for like the Archimedes dial, and they keep throwing out these names of like Greek, Roman philosophers and whatnot, and there's a lot of exposition, both for characters and what happened to them, as well as plot elements, as well as the treasure hunt. There's some occasional visual aids, and as you're watching the film and they start acting on their plans and going to where they gotta go, like you can follow along and figure it out from the solid direction by James, like just the visual cues. But I will admit that compared to something like what else did I watch recently, like Mission Impossible Fallout, a lot of that plot, kind of a complex plot, but it's simplified. There's a lot of visual aids. They're very clear and repeat certain names. And this one kind of does that, but it just not too terribly well sometimes. So I almost would get lost or a little bit zoned out whenever there were overly expository scenes, which isn't so much bad writing, just they're trying to cram a lot. This might be the longest Indiana Jones movie to date, but they're trying to cram a lot of plot into this, and it doesn't fail, but at the same time, it could have been fleshed out a bit better. Make the objectives a bit clearer and just make things a bit more straightforward. Because if you're even losing me a little bit, I'm just like, whoa, things are happening fast. I kind of get it, but things are just happening kind of fast. And to the film's credit, they did try to work some emotional moments in here and there. There were, I think, two big emotional moments. One, I just felt, sad for the characters, and I wasn't like, oh, but like I was just like, oh. But my reaction was more akin to, oh, well, that's unfortunate, but that's a good job acting. But there was surprisingly one scene towards the end where I started to well up a little bit, just a little bit. I just wish there might have been one or two more, or at the very least, I wish the emotional moments would have hit harder. It's another one of those fun PG-13 action adventure films where, I just given the nature of like the characters and between the villains and the good guys and ancillary characters, there aren't any stakes. We all kind of know how this adventure is going to go. There's going to be highs, going to be some lows, an eventual triumph. And then by the end, everybody's asking the question, is he going to die? Is he going to live? By he, I mean Indies. Obviously it could go either way, but I feel like the plot is a bit formulaic, and because of its formulaicness and the mild predictability, that you can read it for what it is. So it's harder for me to get invested in a film when there aren't any stakes involved. Do want to say, so funny, the director of Logan brought this guy, or gave the go-ahead to have, I always love seeing Boyd Holbrook in films, and it's funny because Boyd Holbrook in this movie, and I've covered him before, but he basically almost plays the same character he played in Logan. And you know him from a bunch of other things, as well as old Toby Jones. He's in this too, and what a sweet man. I love seeing him in whatever he's in. I will say though, a couple characters in this film are completely wasted, and I'm not going to get too much into detail about it. Feel free to watch it yourself, but what a waste. What a waste. This could have gone so many directions, and it went none of them. So, RIP to what could have been that character. Normally, like in every Indiana Jones movie, the villain deaths are always very ceremonious. They're drawn out. There's like a whole like poetic comeuppance to it or something like that. And in this one, like one or two of the villains kind of go down in some like clever way, or in like a nice little good versus bad character moment. But a surprising amount of the villains go out unceremoniously, and given the context of the situation, it is that they are drawn out into these cool sequences, and it makes sense they go how they go. But I don't know, I like a little bit more ceremony for my villain deaths, and this one just didn't quite cut the mustard for me. Things just kind of work out for characters in this movie, so don't expect to be gripping the edge of your seat along for the ride in this one. But I've been talking way too much. Look, here's the thing. For all the flaws this film has, and there's a few flaws to this film for sure, I disagree with the majority of what critics are, I think, saying about this. Critics are very mixed, and audiences predominantly enjoy it. Critic consensus: it isn't as thrilling as earlier adventures, but the nostalgic rush of seeing Harrison Ford back in action helps Indiana Jones and Dial of Destiny find a few final bits of cinematic treasure. I mean, yeah, it's hard to disagree with that. It's not a perfect film, but I was nervous about how I would feel about it, and I really enjoyed it. Like, sequels are what sequels are most of the time. Nostalgia bait is what it is, and dragging these actors out of retirement to put them back on screen to get audiences to come back to theaters. But overall, I would give Indiana Jones and Dial of Destiny I would give it like a low 4 out of 5. A low 4 out of 5. It scratches all the itches in my brain in just the right way. All the aesthetics that I like. I love watching Indy go around and beat up and punch people and Nazis, and watching Nazis die, and then cut to his modern day and the struggles he's trying to deal with, and being roped back into this adventure. The fights were fun. The chases were fun. There's a lot of chases in this movie, and they're not boring chases either. Everything looked good for it being digital, so props there. I don't think any of the actors did a bad job. The movie had some funny moments. Wasn't hilarious, but funny moments, good acting, fun, action-packed adventure throughout. Maybe if there was more tomb raiding, maybe if there was more plundering, or I don't know, maybe the third act might ruin it for you, but I really enjoyed what happens in the third act personally, so yeah, I would watch it again. It's one of my favorites, and I give it a low 4 out of 5. I say if you get a chance, catch it in theaters, but if you don't like Indiana Jones, or none of the little factors that I've been attributing to my enjoyment of this film, it might not be for you. I totally understand, but as it is, those are my thoughts on Dial of Destiny. So thank you guys and gals so much for watching, and stay tuned for the next episode of whatever movie I review. And goodbye, travelers.